the nights in Shanghai City are never short of light. Neon lights climb the high-rise buildings like blood vessels. Cars flow on the streets, and the air is filled with the smell of money and desire. This city is the financial heart of Huaxia. Every minute and every second, people get rich overnight, and some people get married. And deep in this steel-strength forest, a man stood quietly on the top of an inconspicuous writing building, overlooking the battle scene under his feet. Lin Haotian was wearing a simple black dress, with no expression on his face, and his eyes were as sharp as a knife. He held a cup of coffee in his hand, and his heat was rising, but he couldn't melt the cold air around him. 10 years ago, he was still a soldier king of the army, named Tianlang, and was invincible in the war, and the enemy would tremble when they heard his name. But now, he is just an ordinary person among the tens of thousands of people in Shanghai City, at least on the surface. "Boss, the news is here." A low voice rose from behind him. Lin Haotian returned to his head and saw Zhang Jijun pushing the door and walking in. This guy is his old friend, a brother who was born and died together that year. After retiring, he became the head of the underground intelligence network. Zhang Jijun was burly and had a scar from his brow bone to his chin on his face. He looked sour, but he always grinned at Lin Haotian. "Say." Lin Haotian was calm and his hands holding the coffee were as stable as a stone. Zhang Jijun took out a document from his pocket and passed away. "This is the inside story of several major markets in Shanghai City recently, and the capital flow of several large-scale investors. According to your prediction, after the market opens tomorrow, there will be a wave of success in the new energy board, but there may be a trap behind it, the hand of the old fox in Zhaotianqian." When Lin Haotian heard the name Zhaotianqian, his eyes sank slightly, his fingers unconsciously tightened, and the coffee in the cup shook. He didn't say anything, but just took the document and glanced at it quickly. Over the years, his insights he has practiced on the battlefield have long been used by him. The stock market is a game for others, and to him, it is a battle for him. Every transaction is a life and death game. "Zhao Tianqiu." Lin Haotian said the name in a low voice, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. "I should just do it for the account 10 years ago." Zhang Jijun pointed his head and the smile on his face stopped. He knew that Lin Haotian's purpose of returning to Shanghai City was not to make money or fame and fortune. 10 years ago, the Lin family broke out overnight, their parents died, and their only sister was missing. The mastermind behind the scenes was Tianlang, a financial giant. Lin Haotian was forced to leave his country and join the army that year, becoming the king of soldiers who were killed and defeated. But no matter how far he walked, that deep blood hatred was always in his heart. "Boss, are you really going to shoot him alone?" Zhao Tianyan is not the small character of that year now. He is deeply rooted in Shanghai City, and there are many big figures behind him who are thrusting his waist. Zhang Jijun couldn't help but remind him. Lin Haotian did not answer, but just put the documents into his clothes pocket and turned around to look at the night view outside the window. There was no trace of hesitation in his eyes, only a cold decision. At the battle, he was never afraid of having many enemies, and the same was true in the stock market. No matter how strong Zhaotianqian is, it is not just his treasure. "Iron Army, help me prepare for a new identity. I will go to the stock exchange tomorrow." Lin Haotian finally opened his mouth, his voice low and unquestionable. Zhang Jijun was stunned for a moment and immediately said, "Okay, I'll make arrangements right away." Lin Haotian didn't say anything more, and turned away from the room with his coffee. His back looked a little lonely under the dim light, but every step was as stable as a mountain. He knew that the battle had just begun. Early the next morning, outsiders on the stock exchange in Shanghai City were in a head-on manner. The white men wearing leather shoes were holding their mobile phones, and their faces were filled with anxiety and expectation. Today is the key point for the new energy board. There is a lot of money in the market, and everyone wants to get a share of the pie. Lin Haotian was wearing a normal casual outfit and a baseball cap, mixing in the crowd in a low voice. He held a fake identity certificate he had just done, and he wrote Li Hao on the name column, a very ordinary name. He walked into the exchange hall, found a corner and sat down, took out his phone and opened the trading software. The K-line image on the screen is dancing like a cardiac, and each line represents the hope of countless people. Lin Haotian's eyes swept over the screen, his fingers were operating quickly, and several large numbers of them quietly went in without a sound. His movements were as fast as tugging the pulley on a battlefield without any hesitation. "Hey, brother, are you playing New Energy as well?" A young man next to him came over and asked excitedly, "I heard that there are big customers who want to pull the plate today. Which one have you bought?" Lin Haotian raised his head and glanced at him, saying, "Let's have fun and feel the weather." The young man curled his lips, obviously not believing it, but he didn't ask any more questions and kept staring at his phone. Lin Haotian lowered his head and continued to operate. His goal is very clear. There is a stock called Green Technology in the New Energy Board, with the shadow of Zhao Tianqi behind it. Today, he wants to give the other party a little surprise. At 9:30 in the morning, the market was boiling in an instant. Green Energy Technology's stock price was as straight as a rocket, and the investors on the exchange were shouting and following. But Lin Haotian just looked at the screen coldly and tapped the last order on the keyboard with his fingers. His operation was like an ambush on a war scene, first making the enemy think he had won, and then gave a fatal blow at the most critical moment. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Green Energy Technology's stock price suddenly fell like a cliff. A large number of investors were trapped, and there was a lot of wailing in the exchange. Lin Haotian's account has a considerable profit. He turned off his cell phone, got up and left, without a single wave on his face. To him, this is just a hot body, and the real battle is still behind. At the same time, in a luxurious office building in the center of Huai, Zhao Tianyan was sitting on a large leather sand table, listening to his subordinates' reports. His face was so dark that it could drip out of water, and the cigar in his hand was pinched and changed shape. "Chairman, Green Energy Technology was sniped today, and we lost nearly 5 billion in funds," the subordinates said tremblingly, with cold sweats all over their heads. "Who did it?" Zhao Tianyan's voice was as low as it was coming from the ground, and there was a sense of cruelty in his eyes. "I'm not sure yet. The other party's operation is too fast and its techniques are very professional. It seems that it has already made a good start. Our technical team is chasing, but we haven't found a specific person to choose." The subordinate lowered his head and did not dare to look directly at Zhao Tianyan's eyes. Zhao Tianyan snorted coldly and pressed the cigar into the ashtray. "Check, I have to find out even if I dig 3 feet into the ground. No one dares to dig the stock market in Huai City yet." His subordinates were busy and turned around and retreated. Zhao Tianqi leaned against the sand, closed his eyes, and moved quickly in his brain. He has been in Huai City for so many years, and he has never seen any waves. But today's operations made him feel uneasy. The other party's technique was too clean and neat, like a sniper on the battlefield, hitting the target with one strike without any delay. "Interesting." Zhao Tianyan sneered out of the corner of his mouth and murmured, "I want to see who is so big." After leaving the exchange, Lin Haotian did not go back to his residence directly, but instead walked around a few streets and came to an inconspicuous small coffee shop. He ordered a cup of black coffee, found a seat by the window, and the number of income that had just been traded was displayed on the screen of the phone. To him, this amount of money was just a small fuck. "Mr. Li?" A crisp female voice suddenly echoed, interrupting his thoughts. Lin Haotian raised his head and saw a woman in professional clothes standing at the table. She looked 25 or 6 years old, with a pretty face, and a sense of wisdom and determination in her eyes. Her famous brand wrote Su Wanqing, Xingchen investment analyst. "Who are you?" Lin Haotian glanced at his eyebrows, bringing a ring in his voice. Su Wanqing smiled, sat down and said directly, "I am an analyst at Xingchen Investment. I saw your operations on the exchange today, which is really wonderful. I want to talk to you about cooperation." Lin Haotian raised his eyebrows and said nothing, but just looked at her calmly. His eyes were like X-rays, and seemed to be able to see through people. Su Wanqing felt a little uncomfortable when she saw her, but she continued to say with a slut, our company has encountered some trouble recently and urgently needs a master like you to help. If you are willing to cooperate, the compensation will definitely not disappoint you. I'm so irritating. Lin Haotian finally opened his mouth, with a burst of excitement in his language, speak and look. Su Wanqing bit her lip, as if she was rude, but in the end she said, our family's business is being opposed by a large customer, and the fund chain is about to break. If you don't find a breakthrough, you may not be able to get rid of the next month. I checked today's transaction records, and your fund flow and operation methods can help us turn the bill. After hearing this, Lin Haotian did not answer immediately, but just picked up the coffee and took a sip. His brain was flying fast, and Su Wanqing's appearance was a bit unexpected, but maybe it was an opportunity. Xingchen Investment is not small in Huahai City. If they can use their platform to get close to Zhao Tianjian, the road to revenge will be even smoother. Cooperation is okay, but I have the conditions. Lin Haotian put down his cup, his simplicity and his temperament cannot be refused. First, I will not show up, and all operations will be carried out by you. Second, I don't want cash for the reward, and I want the internal information in your company. Su Wanqing was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting Lin Haotian to make such a request. Lin Haotian clicked the head and stood up, that's it, you can send me an email in detail. After saying that, he turned away, leaving Su Wanqing alone at the table. She looked at Lin Haotian's back, and a complex light flashed in her eyes. There is an indescribable aura in this man, like a wolf hiding in the dark, which may be thrown out and tear everything apart at any time. Lin Haotian walked out of the coffee shop. The night had already fallen, and the streets of Huahai City were still hustle and bustle. He took out his cell phone and sent Zhang Jijun a message, check the background of Xingchen Investment and Su Wanqing, the more detailed the better. After the message was sent, he put away his cell phone and looked up at the high building far away. It was the location of Zhao Tianjian's financial empire, and it was also the end of his revenge. He knew that the battle just started, and every wave in the sea would be more risky than the guns and rain on the battlefield. But he is not afraid because he is a sky wolf, the legend on the battlefield, the myth in the stock market. As the night wind blew, Lin Haotian's windbreaker slightly slapped under his clothes, and a sense of war ignited in his eyes. This city will eventually cause a storm due to his arrival. The night wind is a bit cool, and the car lights on the streets of Huahai City are flowing, and the noise is not endless. Lin Haotian stood on the corner of the street outside the coffee shop, and the mobile phone screen lit up, and Zhang Jijun's reply was quick, the information about Xingchen Investment and Su Wanqing has been sorted out, and will be given to you tomorrow morning at the latest. Boss, are you really planning to cooperate with this woman? Her background is not simple, and the family behind her is full of trouble. After reading the message, Lin Haotian sneered a corner of his mouth, and without replying, he put his phone in his pocket. Of course he knew that Su Wanqing was not simple, but who could be clean in the city? To him, trouble is a chance. As long as he can get close to Zhao Tianjian, he can afford any price. He raised his head and looked at the financial district with high buildings far away. The brightly lit place was hidden in countless trades and transactions, which was also a battle for his revenge. As his footsteps sounded on the street, he turned toward the apartment he had rented at the moment, and the night turned his figure long and lonely. Each step was as stable as if it was a military force on the battlefield, without any extra movement. After returning to the apartment, Lin Haotian took off his clothes, threw them on the sofa with his hands, and opened the computer to record the computer. A bunch of stock market data and capital flow diagrams were displayed on the screen. He made a cup of instant coffee and sat at the table, his eyes focused on each curve. These numbers are just boring codes for ordinary people, but in his eyes, they are like maps on the battlefield, with each ups and downs hiding the enemy's ideas. The family business crisis mentioned by Su Wanqing made him smell an unusual smell. Although Xingchen Investment is not a top player in Huahai City, the families behind it have a considerable impact on the new energy and real estate sectors, which can make them fall into the dilemma of a financial chain, which is probably inseparable from Zhao Tianjian. Old fox, it's really fast to move. Lin Haotian muttered in a low voice, tapping his finger on the keyboard, and tuning out a recent public transaction record of Xingchen Investment. Sure enough, in the past 3 months, their capital flow has been abnormal, and they have been sniped by large investors many times, and their stock price has been suppressed so much that they can hardly raise their heads. This operation method is like the same style as Tianlang. First use small actions to try, consume opponents' resources, and then get fatal at the key moment. Lin Haotian leaned on the back of the chair, picked up the coffee and took a sip, and his brain had already started to calculate the next move. If what Su Wanqing said is true, Xingchen Investment is now a piece of fat meat, and anyone can take a bite. What he had to do was not to help them keep this piece of flesh, but to use this crisis to lead Zhao Tianyan's minions out one by one, and then uproot them. He knew that the stock market was like a war, and the apparent win was just a smoke, and the real game was about who could laugh to the end. At this moment, a new email popped up in the lower right corner of the screen of the notebook, and the sender was Su Wanqing. Lin Haotian clicked and saw that it was inside information about Xingchen Investment's recent detailed financial reports and several key transactions. She also attached a paragraph. Mr. Li, these are the preliminary information we can provide, and I hope to prove our sincerity. I will wait for you in the meeting room of Star University tomorrow at 3 p.m. We will discuss the specific cooperation details. Lin Haotian glanced at the report. The data was indeed detailed, and he could clearly write several secret funds. He raised his eyebrows, and he didn't expect that this woman would act so quickly, and it seemed that she was really desperate. However, he did not intend to show up. The risk of talking about this matter in person is too great. His fingers quickly typed a few words on the keyboard. I won't go, I'll communicate with the details. I'll formulate the operation plan, you'll be responsible for the execution. After sending the email, he closed his computer, got up and walked to the window, and opened the window to let the cold wind flow in. The night view of Shanghai City is still dazzling, but in his eyes, this city is just a bigger battleground. The hatred 10 years ago was like a knife, which was always stuck in his heart. Now, he finally had the opportunity to pull out the knife by hand and stab the enemy in the heart. The next morning, Zhang Jijun's information was delivered at the right time. Lin Haotian sat on the sofa in the apartment, looking through a thick piece of documents, with detailed backgrounds about Su Wanqing and Xingchen Investment. Su Wanqing, 26 years old, is a financial professional. After graduating from school, she directly entered the family business. In just 3 years, she became the core analyst of Xingchen Investment and had a very sensitive market sensation. But her family has been tightened by the rapid expansion in the past 2 years, and some insiders have secretly engaged in minor actions, which has led to several mistakes in the decisions and has been almost forced to the cliff. Interesting. Lin Haotian closed the document, and his eyes were filled with a sense of excitement. Su Wanqing's situation was worse than he thought, but it was a good thing for him. The more desperate a person is, the easier it is to be controlled by him. He got up and put on his coat, put on a baseball cap, and prepared to go out to the exchange to find out the voice. At this moment, the phone was moved, and the number of Zhang Iron Army was displayed on the screen. Boss, there is a new situation. Zhang Jijun's voice sounded a little urgent. The people from Tianlang have recently secretly investigated the exchange's trading records and focused on several large orders of the new energy board. They should be blocking you. My people said that they have adjusted the monitoring and tried to find out the operator's identity. After Lin Haotian finished listening, his face did not change much, but he just responded lightly, I understand, keep staring at me. After disconnecting the phone, he walked to the lens and glanced at his outfit. The baseball cap is very low and the casual wear is inconspicuous. Even if the monitor takes a photo, he can't tell who he is. However, Zhao Tianyan's actions were faster than he expected. It seemed that yesterday's sniper made the old fox unable to sit still. He sneered, pushed the door out, and disappeared into the morning crowd in Shanghai City. The exchange is full of people's voices, and the number of investors is surrounding the big screen discussion. Today's market trend is different, and the rise and fall of several popular stocks is completely unreasonable. Lin Haotian found a corner and sat down, turned on his phone, and the K-line image on the screen fluctuated like waves. He glanced quickly and had several possible capital flows in his brain. Sure enough, there are a few large numbers of pens in the new energy board, and the operation method behind it is obvious intrigue. It is probably because the people from Tianlang are fishing, wanting to see if yesterday's sniper will be exposed again. If you want to play, right? Then let's play with you. Lin Haotian muttered in a low voice. His fingers quickly operated on his phone, and several small orders were scattered in. On the surface, it seemed unregulated, but in fact it was guiding the market's scattered situation, making the other party's experiment fail. After half an hour, the market fluctuations gradually calmed down, and those exploratory orders no longer appeared. It was obvious that the other party did not find the trace they wanted. Lin Haotian turned off his phone, got up and left the exchange, with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. Zhao Tianyan thought he was a hunter, but in his eyes, this old guy was just a fox waiting to be slaughtered. He knew that this little bitch was just an appetizer, and the real exchange was still at the back. The appearance of Su Wanqing may allow this battle to enter the white heat in advance. In the afternoon, Lin Haotian returned to the apartment, and Su Wanqing's reply was already waiting for him in her email. She said she fully accepted his conditions and attached a more detailed internal information, including records of transactions between Star Investment and several major investors. Lin Haotian quickly browsed and found that several capital flows directly pointed to a shell company controlled by Zhao Tian. The old fox had a long hand, and on the surface there was nothing to do with Xingchen's investment. In fact, he had already set up the Tianlu website and waited for the other party to join the website. He leaned against the sand, flying in his brain. Su Wanqing's family business is now like a leaky ship, which may not sink at any time, but if operated properly, the ship can also become a bomb, blowing up the defense line of the Tianqiu. He picked up his mobile phone and sent a message to Su Wanqing. In 3 days, I will give you an operation plan to help you stabilize your stock price. But you must cooperate without any conditions. If any step is wrong, the cooperation will be terminated immediately. After sending the email, he got up and walked to the window, and the high floor of the financial district far away was flashing coldly under the sun. He knew that the rhythm of this battle was accelerating, and Zhao Tianyan's trial was just the beginning. Next, the other party might use more ruthless means. And he must set up every piece before the other party reveals the break. 3 days later, in the meeting room of Xingchen Investment, Su Wanqing was holding a printed operation plan, and her face was full of shock. This plan comes from Li Hao, that is, Lin Haotian. Every step of the operation inside is accurate and almost terrible, and even several unexpected situations that may occur in the market have been taken into consideration. Several high-level companies around her are also silly discussing, clearly feeling incredible about the professionalism of this plan. Wanqing, who is this person? This kind of handwriting is not as simple as a person can do. A middle-aged man couldn't help but speak, his language was full of doubt. Su Wanqing slammed her head and her eyes were complicated. I don't know his true identity, but he is indeed capable of helping us through trouble. Now is not a time of doubt, we must follow his plan, otherwise the company will really not be able to continue. There was a silence in the meeting room for a while, and in the end everyone agreed. Su Wanqing picked up her mobile phone and sent Lin Haotian a message. The plan has been received and we will implement it strictly. Thank you for your help. When Lin Haotian saw the information, he was in a net bar, holding a cup of milk tea that had been clear. He raised his eyebrows, didn't reply, but just kept staring at the stock market data on the screen. The first step for Su Wanqing and others to implement the plan was to release a batch of good news before the closing today to attract users to the scene and at the same time cover up his subsequent operational traces. He knew that this was just the first step, and in the next few days, the market's reaction will determine the direction of this game. As expected, after the closing, the stock Star New Energy of Xingchen Investment Holdings rose slightly, and the market situation was successfully ignited, and the number of investors began to hot on the potential of this stock. Lin Haotian looked coldly and tapped a few secret purchase orders on the keyboard with his fingers, further pushing up the stock price, and at the same time planted several key sales orders to prepare for the subsequent counterattack. At the same time, in Zhao Tianyan's office, a subordinate was fighting and reported carefully, "Chairman, Xingchen New Energy suddenly attracted a lot today, and there seem to be new funds behind it. Our technical team analysis shows that the operation techniques are somewhat similar to those who sniped green energy technology before." After hearing the song in Zhao Tian, her face was as dark as the sky before the rain. He slapped the table suddenly, his voice was low and dangerous. "Continue to check. No matter who dares to cause trouble under my nose, I want him to regret being born." His subordinates quickly stepped back, and Zhao Tianyan leaned on the back of the chair, with a harsh light in his eyes. He has been in Huahai City for so many years and has never eaten such a bad thing. Xingchen investment is just a side dish. He planned to slowly kill them, but now, Chen Yaojin was killed halfway through, making him feel inconsistent. He picked up his phone and clenched a number. His language was as cold as ice. "Old Chen, use your relationship to help me check what new faces are in the market recently. I want to know who is playing this trick with me." In the next few days, the stock market in Huahai City was in full swing. The stock price of Xingchen New Energy rose smoothly under Lin Haotian's operation, successfully attracting the attention of the market. Su Wanqing's family business finally breathed a sigh of relief. But Lin Haotian knew that this was just a superficial victory, and Zhao Tianyan's counterattack might come at any time. He stayed in different websites or coffee shops every day, logged in with a fake identity to register the trading system, and operated without any leakage. At the same time, the Zhang Iron Army closely monitored the movements of Zhaoshanzhang. Sure enough, on the morning of the fifth day, the market suddenly reported a negative news, saying that Xingchen New Energy's project had major financial loopholes, and the stock price instantly plunged, and the investors were wailing. Su Wanqing urgently contacted Lin Haotian, and her language was filled with anxiety. "Mr. Li, the market suddenly collapsed and our stock price fell by 20%. What should I do?" Lin Haotian heard the sound on his phone, and there was no slight noise on his face, but said lightly, "Don't panic, follow my previous preparatory plan, release a clarification announcement before 3 p.m., and buy it into the bottom line. I will cooperate with you in the background." After closing the phone, he quickly opened the trading software, operated quickly with his fingers, and entered the market quietly without any notice. While stabilizing the stock price, the people in the Zhao Tianqiu couldn't figure out his details. At 3 p.m., Xingchen Investment issued a clarification announcement as scheduled, and the stock price began to reverse. Although it could not completely recover the lost land, it at least did not allow the other party to succeed. Lin Haotian turned off his computer, got up and left the internet, and a sneer was hanging on the corner of his mouth. Zhao Tianyan's move is just a small test of the bull's sword, and the real tough battle is still at the back. He knew that this old fox would not give up easily, and he had long been ready to welcome the bigger waves. The night fell again, and people came to the streets of Huahai City. Lin Haotian stood on the road, lit a cigarette, and the smoke was in the fog. His eyes were cold and fixed. Every game in the stock market is a life and death ratio, and he has never passed away. Every step of Zhao Tianyan's trial will only bring him one step closer to the end of revenge. This battle just came to the climax. The night became increasingly heavy, and the street lights of Huahai City were like golden rivers, reflecting Lin Haotian's expressionless face. He held the cigarette in his mouth, and the firelight and the smoke was bright and slammed in the dark, and his eyes were always staring at the high building in the remote financial district. That was the core of Zhao Tianyan's empire and his last stop to revenge. After just talking to Su Wanqing, Xingchen New Energy's stock price was barely stable, but the market storm did not calm down. Zhao Tianqi's reversal only begins. In the next few days, the stock market in this city will become a real shuro field. Lin Haotian snatched his cigarettes and turned around and walked into a dim alley, disappearing into the crowd. He knew that now was not a time to relax, and he had to take every step carefully. Back at the apartment he rented at the moment, he opened his computer and displayed the latest transaction data of Xinchen New Energy and market hot analysis on the screen. Although he resolved the negative news released by Zhao Tianjian this time, the opponent's backup plan must be on the way. He quickly tapped the keyboard with his fingers, and adjusted the recent capital flow of several shell companies related to Zhao Tianjian. Sure enough, he found that several large amounts of funds were secretly adjusting, and his goal was directly aimed at Xinchen investment. "I want to play big, right?" Lin Haotian muttered in a low voice, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. He quickly sent a message to Su Wanqing. "After the market opened tomorrow, follow the second plan I gave before, release the trump card in your hand, and attract the players to the scene. I will operate in the backstage to attract the people who are selling the sky." After sending the email, he leaned on the back of the chair, closed his eyes, and flew quickly in his brain to simulate tomorrow's market. The stock market is like a battle, and every step must be calculated to be extremely serious, and there is no tolerance for any mistakes. Zhao Tianyan, the old fox, was deeply rooted in Shanghai City and had countless professional teams under his command to support him, but Lin Haotian was never afraid of being a strong enemy. At the battle, he can win 100 people, and in the sea of stocks, he can even turn the clouds. At this moment, the phone was moved, and the number of Zhang Iron Army was displayed on the screen. Lin Haotian picked up the phone and heard the other party's low voice, "Boss, the people from Zhao Tianqi have moved. They have contacted several underground forces to prepare to attack you. The monitoring near the exchange has been targeted by them. You'd better change to a local operation in the past few days." After Lin Haotian finished listening, his eyes sank slightly, but his temperament was calm. "I understand, help me prepare a few new identities. I will change to a place tomorrow. In addition, check the details of those underground forces, and I want to see what waves can Zhao Tianyan find." After closing the phone, he got up to pack his stuff, stuffed his notebook computer into his backpack, changed his clothes simply, put on a baseball cap, left the apartment overnight, and moved to another hiding spot that had been prepared long ago. This is the habit he cultivated on the battlefield and will never let the enemy find out his position. The nights in Shanghai City are still hustle and bustle, but in his eyes, this city is just a huge chessboard, and he wants to be the one who plays chess. The next morning, Lin Haotian sat down in a remote internet bar, with the transaction software connected to the mobile phone, and the K-line image on the screen was beating like a cardiogram. As the market opened, the stock price of Xinchen New Energy rose slightly according to his expectations. The good news released by Su Wanqing played a role. The market situation was quickly ignited, and the number of investors rushed into the market. However, Lin Haotian knew that this was just a seemingly calm, and Zhao Tian's funds might be killed at any time, turning this scene into a murder. Sure enough, around 10:30 in the morning, an unusual wave of large-scale sales suddenly appeared in the market. Xinchen New Energy's stock price instantly plunged, and the investors on the exchange were wailing. Lin Haotian looked coldly, his fingers flew fast on the keyboard, and several secret purchase orders entered the venue quietly without any notice. While stabilizing the stock price, the other party's experiment was also lost. He knew that this was just Zhao Tianyan's first attack, and the real killing was still at the back. At the same time, in Zhao Tianjian's office, a subordinate was lowering his head. "Chairman, Xinchen New Energy's response is faster than we expected, and there must be experts behind us." As soon as our sales orders were gone, the other party calmed down and the operation method was very experienced. After hearing the Zhaotians, his face was as dark as the sky before the storm. The steel pen in his hand was creaking and creaking. "Continue to press and use all the reserve funds. I want to see how long they can last. Also, is there any news underground? Have you found someone?" The subordinates slammed their heads and were a little nervous. "No, the other party is too slippery. The monitors near the exchange only captured a few blurry backs, which they couldn't recognize at all. However, we have locked up a few possible hiding points and will send someone to investigate tonight." Zhao Tianyan snorted coldly, his eyes flashed with a ruthless light. "If you can't find anyone, I'll invest the stars and completely crush them. I want to see when the mouse hidden behind me can hide." Lin Haotian finished the last purchase order in the internet bar, turned off his phone, got up and left. He knew that Zhao Tianjian's financial pressure was just the beginning, and in the next few days, the game in the market would become more and more intense. And he must set up the last piece before the other party reveals the break. When I walked out of the internet, Zhang Jijun's message came, "Boss, my new identity is ready, and the address is sent to you. In addition, people from Zhao Tianqi may attack several locations tonight, be careful." After reading the message, Lin Haotian sneered at the corner of his mouth. He had long expected that Zhao Tianjian would use underground force. Although this method was despicable, it was not common in places like Huahai City. He quickly changed directions, crossed several streets, and came to the new hiding spot prepared by Zhang Jijun, an inconspicuous small hotel. After entering the house, he put down his backpack, checked the environment in the room, and confirmed that there was no monitoring or listening equipment, so he sat at the table and continued to analyze the data. The night was getting deeper, and the streets of Huahai City gradually calmed down, but Lin Haotian's brain did not stop for a moment. He knew that Zhao Tianyan's patience was being polished a little, and the old fox would soon reveal his real minions. And he is waiting for this opportunity. In the next 3 days, every fluctuation in the market was under his control. Xinchen New Energy's stock price rebounded smoothly with the cooperation of Su Wanqing. Although it was occasionally suppressed by Zhao Tianqian's capital, its total energy was destroyed. On the third night, Lin Haotian received an emergency call from Zhang Jijun, "Boss, the people from Zhaotian have found some traces. They will attack the small hotel tonight. My people are already controlling the surrounding area, but you'd better evacuate first." After Lin Haotian finished listening, his face had no change, but he just said lightly, "Don't withdraw, let them come. I want to see what kind of goods this old fox can send." After closing the phone, he got up and checked the room, stuffed his backpack into the bed, then took out a military dagger from his clothes pocket and inserted his hand into his waist. This dagger has been with him for many years, and he has saved him countless times on the battlefield. Now, it should be sent to the battlefield. He sat by the window, looking at the street outside through the gaps in the window, his eyes as cold as a wolf waiting for a pet. Sure enough, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, a few light footsteps came from the street, and several black shadows sneaked up near the hotel. Lin Haotian pulled a sneer on his lips, flicked his body, and quickly hid behind the door. The door was pried open lightly, and 3 men in black walked in, holding iron sticks and daggers in their hands, their eyes full of cruelty. However, before they could react, they heard a low cold snorkeling, and then a black shadow swept over like a ghost. Lin Haotian's movement was as fast as a flash. The dagger cast a cold light in the darkness. The first man in black fell down without saying a word, covering his neck and unable to make sound. The other 2 responded, and the dancer came up, but their speed was as slow as a gusset in Lin Haotian's eyes. He dodged the attack from one side, hit one of the people's sun hole with one elbow, and the other party should have a sound and fell to the ground. The last man in black saw that the outcome was not good, so he turned around and ran away, but Lin Haotian would not give him a chance, kicking him in the knee and knocking him down. "Who sent you here?" Lin Haotian's voice was low and dangerous, and the dagger pressed against the neck of the last man in black, and the cold light flashed. The man in black shivered with a trembling and said in a daze, "Yes, it's General Zhao. We are just doing things with money, and we're going to waste our lives." Lin Haotian sneered, and with a force on his wrist, the dagger made a clean blood mark on the other party's neck. "Go back and tell Zhao Tianjian, don't play with these little tricks. Want to find me, come openly. I'll wait for him." After saying that, he kicked the man in black and stood up to tidy up his clothes, without a trace of his eyes. This kind of small character is not worth his effort at all. He knew that Zhao Tianyan would receive the news soon, and this battle would eventually reach its final climax. In the next few days, the waves in the sea became more and more fierce. Zhao Tian used all the funds that can be used to try to destroy Xinchen New Energy in one picture, but Lin Haotian's operations were as accurate as ghosts and gods, and he could turn into a barbarism every time, and even bite the other party. At the same time, Zhang Jijun brought a key story. boss, my man dug up a document, which was a direct evidence of Zhao Tianyan framed your family 10 years ago, including the flow of funds and the confessions of several key figures. As long as this document is exposed, Zhao Tianyan will be finished." After Lin Haotian finished listening, a cold light finally flashed in his eyes. He waited for 10 years, and that was the moment. He quickly formulated the final plan to allow Zhang Jijun to hand over the documents to a reliable mediator, and at the same time set up a shocking situation in the stock market, preparing to give Via Tianjian a fatal blow. The key points of the plan were on a major trading day 3 days later. Lin Haotian used all the funds that could be adjusted and joined forces with Su Wanqing's Xingchen investment to release a wave of fake news in the market, instigating Tianshang's funds to enter the market. After all the other parties' funds were invested, Lin Haotian turned around and shorted, smashed the market directly. Several core stocks controlled by Zhao Tianqian instantly collapsed, and the market was wailing. At the same time, the media exposed documents provided by Zhang Jijun, and Zhao Tianshan's crimes 10 years ago were made public, and the discussion was instantly exploded. His financial empire collapsed under the stock price collapse and pressure, and countless investors came to the door to discuss debts, and even the big figures behind him began to cut off the relationship and try to clear himself. In Zhao Tianyan's office, he sat in a chair, staring at the bloody K-line picture on the screen, his face as white as a ghost. The phone kept urging, all of which were the callers and partners, but he was no longer able to connect. He knew that he was done, and it was done in the end. At this moment, the office door was pushed open, and a man in black clothes walked in, with no expression on his face and his eyes were as sharp as a knife. "Zhao Tianqi, the account from 10 years ago, let's forget it today." Lin Haotian's voice was low and cold, and every word seemed to hit Zhao Tianqi's heart. Zhao Tianyan looked at him, his pupils suddenly shrank, and his voice trembled. "You are Lin Haotian? Are you dead?" Lin Haotian sneered, approached quickly, and looked down at the once arrogant financial giant. "Not only did I die, I'm back. You ruined my family that year, and today, I want you to pay for it." Zhao Tianyan wanted to say something, but Lin Haotian didn't give him a chance, and punched him on the other party's face, knocking him over the chair to the ground. He didn't move anymore, but just looked at Zhao Tianyan coldly, as if he was looking at a dying wilderness. The police will come soon, and Zhao Tianyan can only spend the second half of his life in prison. And he eventually took revenge for his family. A few days later, the stock market in Shanghai City gradually calmed down, and the collapse of Zhao Tianqi became the biggest news in the financial industry. The more he passed, the more he became, and no one knew his true identity. Lin Haotian stood in front of Su Wanqing's office window, looking at the city under his feet, with a difficult gentleness in his eyes. "Mr. Li." "No, I should call you Mr. Lin." Su Wanqing stood behind him, with a hint of gratitude and complexity in her language. "Thank you for helping us through the difficulties. It depends on you for Xingchen investment to be what it is today." Lin Haotian turned around and smiled. "No thanks, I will help you, and I will help myself. From today on, the name Li Hao will not appear again. Let's walk your own way." Su Wanqing was stunned for a moment, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she just clicked a little. She knew that this man was like a wind, coming suddenly and leaving without any noise. She watched Lin Haotian turn away, her back was lonely and determined, as if this city could no longer tolerate him. Lin Haotian walked out of the Star Palace, and the night wind blew over it, bringing a sense of turmoil. He took out his cell phone and sent a message to Zhang Jijun, "Iron Army, I am ready to leave Shanghai City, and I will hand you what's going on." After sending the message, he turned off his cell phone and raised his head to look at the night sky of the city. As soon as he walked to the end of his journey of revenge, the knife in his heart finally pulled out, but the void could not be filled. He turned around and walked far away, his steps were neither fast nor slow, as if he had never been here. The neon lights in Shanghai City are blurred behind him, and the saying of Tianlang will remain forever in this wave of the sea.